Welcome to the Startup Grind.
DJ. You can. So I'd like to introduce DJ Stefen. He co-founded NoteHall and successfully sold it to Chegg. In 2009, he was Bloomberg's American's Best Young Entrepreneur finalist. And he is now the CEO and owner of SkySlope. I'd like to give him a big hand, everybody. All right, so the notes are a little off.
Give me the easy ones first.
Yeah, it is easy. So, like, actually, the very first question I asked was a previous client was, what was your favorite movie? And that threw them off.
Yeah. Gladiator.
So, wow, that's interesting. So, where are you from, and what did your parents do?
So I'm born and raised in Folsom, California.
Oh boy.
Yeah, homeboy. My father was an entrepreneur. He retired at the age of 35, and he kind of instilled that spirit in me from the very beginning.
What kind of entrepreneur, or what was his business?
It was MLM, actually, so he was in Amway.
Okay.
Also a little marketing. And he just instilled in me from a very young age that that whatever you believe is possible, you can achieve. And so anytime I had a wild dream, I wanted to be a professional athlete, he said, you can do it. Let's figure out a plan to make it happen. Or I wanted to buy a car. He's like, all right, what car do you want? What's your dream car? All right, let's make a plan to make it happen. The sky was always the limit with him. As long as you could believe you can achieve it, you can do it. And that was kind of always one of my inspiration and my mentor.
That's great. That's really great. And so with that said, first of all, what did you want to be when you grew up? You had mentioned a couple things. What did you want to be?
Oh, I wanted to be an entrepreneur from as far back as I can remember. My dad was in Amway, and they had different levels, and it was diamond for the top level. And so I always told him I wanted to be a diamond when I grew up. But more so, I think I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just knew it. I knew I wanted the same lifestyle that he had. He raised me and my sister, went on every school field trip, and was always around. I knew it was wanted that exact same thing when I decided to raise a family.
That's great. Actually, that's kind of what I think people wanting to be entrepreneurs is something that's not really ingrained in them, because that's a school system. You're kind of raised to work for somebody else or go to college. So that's something that's pretty cool to know. And what was your first job? Speaking of jobs.
First job, bagging groceries. Is that what you're looking for? Or newspaper route before that?
Well, that's respectable.
Yeah, like age of 13. Always had to make money.
That's very respectable. Good hard work ethic.
That's right.
All right, so your first company was NoteHall, and so tell me about tell me what it did and what inspired you to start it.
That's a great question. So NoteHall was an online marketplace for students to buy and sell notes. So all the smart kids would take their notes in class and they'd post them on our website. And the kids that fell behind, we like to say, or struggled in the classroom, were the people that go on there and buy the notes. And
look at me.
Yeah. And every time one of the kids that were struggling bought the notes, the student that provided the notes got a commission. And it was just kind of a no-brainer concept. Not a no-brainer, but it was already happening on campus to some degree. Students exchanging notes, sometimes for 3 cents or not. And so we just provided a platform for students to really capitalize on it. And we started at the U of A, University of Arizona, my first semester I was there. And we had a lot of connections there, so it instantly took off just because we were pretty well networked there. So it really worked out well, and we knew the challenge for us was going to be finding a scalable model that we could put this in universities across the country. And so that was our first major hurdle, but I mean, out of the gates we had, I'd say 75% of the campus using it in our first semester.
So that's interesting, because I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. How did you have, what was one of your co-founder a programmer, or did you hire somebody?
One of our co-founders was a programmer. We hired him at first just through a local programming firm, and then we brought him on as one of the founders about 3 or 4 months later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he pretty much did all the upfront work.
There wasn't a whole lot of technology to it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Students buy notes, students sell notes, they post them, they have a little preview for it, and then obviously the merchant account on the back end. So there wasn't a whole lot of technology to it. And so he was primarily doing that. Sean, Justin, and myself were kind of doing business part-time or half-time as we were going to school still too.
Okay. And so if you guys haven't noticed, although I've been plastering it all over the place, that basically one of the claims to fame for NoteHall was you guys made it a pitch on Shark Tank.
We did.
And so how did you get on Shark Tank?
It was the first season, and it was funny because Dragon's Den, I think, is the European version. I don't know. They made this big public announcement that they were coming to the States, and one of my friends at the time, we were in an incubator in Philadelphia, and he was from Europe, and he said, "Oh, you guys should apply to this. We're not going to because we're not revenue generating, but you guys are." We applied to it. About a month later, they said, "Hey, can you guys submit a video resume?" We did, and then about a week later after that, they had a phone interview, and 3 days after that, we were in LA pitching.
No, so was there like trial, or was it you just immediately went to the pitch?
So we'd already been pitching angels in Philadelphia at the time, so we were pretty comfortable in front of angel investors and investors in general. So once we got there, everyone else that was there, this is the first season, so no one even knew what Shark Tank was at the time. No one really knew what was going to go on, so they had to train everyone how to pitch and how to talk to investors and how to position their product, stuff like that. But we got on there and we had about 1, maybe 2 days, maybe an hour or two just in front of some people associated with the show, and they said, all right, you guys are good to go, and they just threw us out there.
So just in the Shark Tank.
Threw us out there, and it was very similar to how you pitch. I think the show is very realistic in how you pitch everything and the questions they ask. The actual equity portions that they're taking for the denominations is completely off balance, but everything else of the show is actually pretty realistic, and our previous experience translated well to that.
Okay. And by the way, I was debating it. We actually have the episode ready to go, so probably after the session.
I was very young.
You still are.
My partner wagered half our company on the show.
So you guys have the opportunity.
It's on our Facebook page too.
It's pretty interesting, actually. So actually, in the episode, you actually, I think you had Robert, Barbara, and Mr. Wonderful competing for you. So tell me about what were you thinking in that whole time?
When you're in the moment, you don't realize what's going on. It's just, I mean, after the first 5 minutes, your first 5 minutes, you're pretty nervous. You're still trying to gain your bearings. But after that, it's just you kind of go instinctual. You're just fighting for your company. You want to demonstrate the value. You want to show its worth. And so we were on there for an hour and a half, and it honestly felt like we were in front of the sharks for an hour and a half. It felt like it was 10 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's that long. So when we see it, it's really edited.
Oh, they cut out so much of it. Yeah, they cut out a lot of it. We go back and, because it's only me and Sean up there, and we have 2 business partners, 2 co-founders with us, Fetty and Justin. We go back and we call them twice actually for advice and talk about and everything like that. And they don't show any of that. We felt kind of bad because they got left off the ships. Only 2 could go on. But yeah, we were up there for a long time.
Okay, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then, and I think you went with Barbara.
We did. Well, the funny thing is about Shark Tank is they tell you before you go on because they want to make good TV. That's their number one thing. And so they say before you go on, we're not going to. Everyone that pitches isn't going to make it on the air. So, but if you accept a deal, you have a much higher possibility of getting on. So we went out there. We said we're not flying from Philadelphia to LA and not making it on TV. We're not going to waste 5 days out there. So we're going to accept whatever deal that we get on the TV show. So that was the mindset we're going on. We knew it was a handshake deal, and we could make up something why we had to back out afterwards. So we did that with that game plan. So we already actually had a deal in our back pocket when we went on the show that was far better terms than we got on the show. But we accepted the deal on the TV show just to make sure that we aired. And we ended up with Barbara, and it made for really good TV too, I think.
So, and actually that's where I read in Wikipedia, that's my resource here. It sounded like the deal didn't happen.
The deal did not happen. It's unfortunate too, because I actually we have met a lot of people who are out there, and most of the people that struck deals on there, they don't actually hear from their investor. It seemed like it was only maybe 40% of people that actually struck deals on the show actually ever hear from the individual again that they invest with. We actually did hear from Barbara. Funny enough, she knew some investors in Philadelphia who she's partnered with and tried to match the terms that we had on the table, but there were just some preferred stock options that we weren't okay with, so we just decided to move in a direction.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, did you get like a huge boost after being on Shark Tank?
We did. We were the #1 search term on Google. We felt great about that. We screenshot that. That's pretty cool. But I mean, ultimately, the demographic that's watching Shark Tank is not college students. They have better things to do with their time than Friday nights. I'm not sure what time the show airs now, but it was Friday nights back then. And so we got a big surge. They crashed the site. We got a lot of inquiries for partnerships and stuff like that. But ultimately, we gained maybe a handful of users. It just wasn't worth it for our demographic. It wasn't worth it. We weren't nationally going after consumers, where I think that's the ideal product pitch for something like that.
Okay, so you're and I think NoteHall went national eventually. Did you go campus by campus, or what was your growth?
It's a good. So we found a virtual kind of scalable model. It's a marketplace. So obviously there's the chicken and egg problem. It's what needs to come first. Is it the content or the buyers? And so for us, we kind of stumbled into it, but it turned out to be an ingenious business model. We'd hire all the note takers. So we'd put out flyers. We had some representatives on campus. We never personally visited the campus. Do a lot of email campaigns and such. And we'd find 1% of the population actually wanted to take notes for, so they're 90% or so wanted to buy the notes. And what we found is we'd have them create study guides and lecture notes and post them on our site, and then what we'd encourage them to do, and we kind of made it dependent on their pay scale, is to go market the materials for them. So we said, look, we're going to pay you $50 flat for creating the notes. Now go market the material so that way you can earn a commission that will get you $200, $300, $400 even for one study guide. And so we turned all of our note takers into little mini marketing directors on each one of our campuses. And it worked out ingeniously. I mean, they had there was technologies. We didn't have Facebook or anything like that. Wasn't as prominent then. So they would use Blackboard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, to message all their classmates. And it was one day before the exam, they'd put out this message to their entire classmates saying, "Hey, I put a study guide up. If you want to check it out, here you go," kind of thing. And students would just flock to it, whether they were prepared or not. They wanted to see what kind of content it was 24 hours during their cram period. And it worked out. It worked out brilliantly on the 150 campuses we ended up expanding to.
Okay. Yeah. And then from that, you actually. Well, how did Chegg? So you sold your business to Chegg, which is a publicly traded company. Tell me about that? Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
Well, let me backtrack just a little bit. So we raised an angel round of funding in Philadelphia, and they were all set off millionaires, well off, and they really want us to go for a home run. They want us to try to become a $1 billion company, and they believed we could, and we pitched them on the idea that we could. But we were running out of money pretty quickly. We didn't have the best business model in terms of a cash flow perspective. And so Sean, our CEO, has pretty much spent literally 12 months straight full-time job either trying to raise money or sell the company. While Justin, myself, and Fetty were behind the scenes kind of managing the content, the site, and everything else. And we got pretty lucky, honestly. It was just kind of the right time. Chegg was looking to acquire companies. Our growth trajectory kind of peaked at the right time, and we couldn't land the perfect financing structure, and we decided at the time Chegg was the best decision for us. And so we sold the company at the time. And
can you say how much?
What's that?
Can you say how much you sold the company?
I can't say how much.
If
you search hard enough, you might be able to find it.
Okay. And so, what was it? So was that sort of? Did you just take some time off afterwards?
No. So Chegg acquired us. And then we had a 2-year vesting agreement. So it was 75% cash, 25% stock. So we had vesting options over 2 years if we continued to work with Chegg. And during my time at Chegg is when I really realized that, and they were not a big company. They're still considered a startup. They had maybe 400 employees at the time. But that's really when I realized this isn't an environment for me. I can't make things happen at the rate I want to make them happen.
Is that because you felt like you're out of control?
Yeah, I had too much constraints on me. I mean, one of the greatest things about being an entrepreneur is if you think of a great idea at nighttime, you can implement the next day, and it could be game changing for the rest of your life. Right. At Chegg, it was so much red tape. I thought of a great idea, and I had to go up the ladder, get financial approval, get HR approval to hire the right people, and it wasn't for me. And so I took some vacations and stuff like that, but no permanent vacations. When my vesting period ended at Chegg, Tyler had just kind of this working prototype for SkySlope, and I absolutely fell in love with the idea because it was an entrepreneur solving his own personal need, which I think are the best types of entrepreneurial endeavors because they're great visionaries for the product. They know exactly what it needs to be successful. And I knew I could probably take a year off, but it's like this is such a great time for the market, for the idea. I said, shoot, let's just jump right back into it.
So that's a great transition. Tell me about what SkySlope. What does SkySlope do, and tell me how it got started. And
of course. So SkySlope is a paperless transaction management solution specifically for real estate brokerages. So we basically help take them paperless, make them more efficient from a business standpoint, from operational standpoint, from the consumer standpoint. That's kind of our mission. Tyler was the top producing real estate agent in Sacramento for about 5 years running. We grew up together for about 5 years, and he created the software out of need. He didn't plan on licensing it out. He was like, I need something that can manage my 250 transactions a year. And so he created it solely out of need. And when he started getting fame for being young and successful in the real estate space, people were asking what he was using to manage his transactions. And that's right when I reached out to him. He's like, I don't know what I have here. I've got some people interested in using this software. I don't know what to do with that. Help me out here. And it was just, our skill sets just perfectly aligned. I was kind of the operational side with NoteHall, and I just took how to scale that company and applied it to a lot of the same principles that we had there. And then Tyler's been the visionary behind the whole thing, and it's been a great balance so far.
So was he a programmer himself, or did he hire somebody?
He was not. So our development was outsourced for the first year and a half or so. We just started bringing it domestic about a year and a half ago. And we found one of my biggest concerns moving from San Francisco back to Sacramento was would we not be able to find talent here in the city. for developers, for whatever else it might be. And we've been really fortunate to find some incredible .NET developers.
Oh wow, that's interesting. I didn't know. So you guys were originally in San Francisco.
No, we originally had everything outsourced in India.
Okay.
So we originally had everything outsourced. They
Right.
built the working prototype, and then once we started getting a little bit bigger, we said, all right, time to bring this back in for security purposes.
Oh, okay. I thought you had an office in San Francisco.
No
Okay.
office.
I'm sorry. All right. And then, I think right now you're getting some great traction. Like, I think when you and I first met, you said like 75,000 subscribers.
Sounds about right. That's about right where we are now. So we've grown from, to backtrack just a little bit, when me and Tyler first got started, I said, I don't want to be, when we start this company, I want to be cash flow positive from day one. I want to have traditional business philosophies from the very first day, and that will give us all the flexibility in the world to be able to make the decisions we want to make. Whether we want to raise capital, whether we want to sell, whether we just want to pay dividends to stakeholders, we'll have all those options available at our fingertips, unlike I had at NoteHall, where we were pigeonholed, whether it's either we have to sell or raise money, and that's a terrible feeling as an entrepreneur.
Right.
You've put your blood, sweat, and tears into something for 3-5 years, and now you're at the mercy of someone else to decide whether or not you're worthy of this acquisition or funding. And so Tyler and I from day one have been conscious of being cash flow positive. And so we've grown pretty conservatively. I mean, we've had many opportunities to raise that funding, we haven't. And so we had 5 employees. It was me, Tyler, and 3 other employees when I first moved back to Sacramento. It was actually almost 2 years ago to the day. And now we're at 50 employees. And
You have a really nice office.
Thank you. We're proud of it. We put a lot of love into that. And that's all growing through cash flow. I mean, I think that really, we never hired an employee unless we had the cash flow to do so, and I think that's one of the things we're most proud of, is being able to grow in that constraint.
Okay. And so actually, let's take a step back. Is this for like a real estate agent, or when you say broker, is that a real estate agent? I'm not sure if that's the right term.
It is. We sell to the broker owner, and so the broker owner is the main decision maker. We start there, and then they kind of force adoption on their brokerage. Their value proposition is, A, it makes their brokerage more compliant, so their admins can be more efficient when reviewing documents, making sure signatures there, making sure all the proper paperwork's there. And then from the agent, the value proposition is you can work from anywhere. You can access your files instead of carrying around, briefcases full of folders like Tyler used to do. Here's the top producer. You just carry around your smartphone. You pull up any file, anytime, anywhere, any contact you might need. So we sell to the broker, and then they kind of force the adoption down the line. But obviously, the value proposition is there to get them excited about it.
So the real estate agent, the transaction is completely paperless, or at some point they need to sign something?
It's an old school industry, so nothing I would say is ever paperless entirely, but we take away for some, so there are some brokerages that are, but for the most, they're 75–80% paperless, from digital signatures to submitting files work to going back and forth with their client in terms of negotiating, whatever it might be. It's all done digitally.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, so do you guys have an ROI, or like how if it's, are you saving money, time? I assume it is, but do you talk about that?
No, I tell my team, there's like a couple of guys back there from the company. I tell them this: we have the right product at the right time in the right industry, and I full-heartedly believe that. I feel like if you have that, I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and they maybe have 1 or 2 of those, and they're incredibly successful. If you have all 3 of those, it's really a no-brainer in industry right now. This is what every broker is looking at. They want to be compliant. They know they need to invest in some kind of technology, but they don't know what it is. And so the value proposition for them is just like we get to kind of align ourselves with a technical partner who can take care of all the technical stuff, so we can focus on growing the business. Because they all know they need to adopt technology, they just don't know exactly what it is, and so we take care of kind of the educational process for them.
Okay. So how are you marketing, your service?
That's a great question. So we've flown pretty far under radar, and that's intentional. I don't believe in marketing efforts that can't produce a quantifiable ROI,
right,
especially in early stage. Brand recognition is great, but I can't justify the investment into lots of PR, whatever it might be. So all of our marketing is done. We really grow through 3 verticals: it's strategic partnerships, it's warm leads that actually do come to sites, rare, but it's more kind of word of mouth, and then our inside sales team. That's pretty much all the marketing we do in terms of growing the business, and we've grown at a rate that's exceeded our expectations.
So what is your growth rate now?
Oh God, we've grown 175% year over year.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So we're pretty happy with that. And we think we can sustain that trajectory for at least another 12 to 24 months.
So what in your mind, what's your plan for world domination?
Plan for world domination. That's a great question. Brokers are so far in the past. Our main goal is to just get them up to speed, get them to leverage technology so they can actually become a more efficient business, and the money will really take care of itself at that point.
So in your mind, do you see, in this case here, do you see yourself being like a unicorn company?
No, God, no. Our market size isn't big enough. We have, 1.8 million realtors in the country. So even if we sign up every single one of them, paying our average purchase price is around $5 to $6 per user, it's just still not that great. But it's the business is going to accomplish all the goals that Tyler and I have set for ourselves. I mean, if we continue to grow at the rate we want to grow, we'll have like I said, any option we want at our fingertips, and it'll help us achieve the goals that we originally had set for ourselves when we first got started.
Okay. So I want to actually talk to a few other more general stuff, and you're kind of one of a breed of entrepreneurs that basically, I think you pretty much dropped out of college to start NoteHall.
Yes.
So and you're in good company, a lot of good company. We actually had Robert Winkler with Fifth Planet Games, did the same thing. Mark Zuckerberg. So I've actually been personally wondering. In fact, one would argue that you've done several things that a Harvard MBA, most Harvard MBAs would even dream of. So I'm actually wondering, in your mind, do you see the value of a college education at this point, or is it better just to go out and get your hands dirty?
Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Or are you talking about specific people that want to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, people that want to be entrepreneurs.
I think entrepreneurship, the school of entrepreneurship, has evolved a lot since 5 years ago, whatever. Schools are getting a lot better at. I mean, Stanford's leading the way in terms of they're actually having classes where students are creating products, getting users, getting revenue, and that's really the entrepreneurship schools back 5 years ago or so, 10 years ago when I was in college. They weren't thinking along those lines. So I think nowadays, I haven't really looked at it in too depth, but I think now you might be able to get a lot more value out of an entrepreneurship degree than you would have 10 years ago or so. But I still think the best way to go is the way I went. We forced ourselves to figure out how to get a user. We forced ourselves how to get $1. There was no one there teaching us. And when you're in that kind of survival mode, as long as you believe in your abilities and believe in your idea, your mind's going to help you find a path to whatever it is you're looking to achieve.
So really, basically, it's more self-learning as opposed to.
It was a lot of trial by error. I have to give a lot of credit to Dream It, which is an incubator based in Philadelphia. We got accepted in them early on, and we surrounded ourselves with great mentors, and they helped us. It's funny, when you're a young entrepreneur, you feel like you know it all. So everyone gives you advice, and you're like, oh, that doesn't apply to my company. But what the mentors did is they gave us so much advice, and we say it didn't apply, and then there'd be a situation where we're like, wow, that's what they were talking about, and it helped us to quickly realize when we were making a wrong decision and kind of veer back to the right path. And so we've had a lot of great mentors in our lives, Dream It being one, surrounding us with all those great individuals, and that was really life-changing for us.
So it sounds like you got a lot from the incubator program and some mentors then. So that, in some ways, that was your education or your educational resource. I tell everyone it was an MBA in 3 months. We accelerated it. We learned so much in that. People were pushing us in the right direction. And I would highly encourage anyone that has the opportunity to do an incubator. It will absolutely change your perspective as an entrepreneur for the better for the rest of your life. Okay. And with that said, what advice would you give to someone and we do have a lot of inspiring entrepreneurs here and entrepreneurs in general. What advice would you give them?
Surround yourself with talented people. Find them. Don't let them out of your reach. Hunt them down in a non-creepy fashion. But really, I know a lot of entrepreneurs in the same boat. We want to give back. We know all the pitfalls, and we're happy to give back. But we're not going to be the ones chasing you down to make it happen. You got to be chasing us down, and we're happy to give back at that time. If we can see that passion, that belief in yourself, and that desire to be great, we're happy to give it all back in spades. But you got to have to want that. So surround yourself with people who've been there before. Believe in yourself more than anything. You got to have that belief in your idea and yourself and your ability to do it. And you're going to have a lot of failure along the way. That's just entrepreneurship. And you have to figure out ways to not let those kind of valleys get you too low. And if you believe in yourself and you have to surround yourself with great people who constantly lift you back up, that's kind of the formula for success.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. I actually got an email from someone that wanted to meet you, so I forwarded it. So that was I don't know if he was creepy or not, but I forwarded it to you.
He was a little creepy.
And I don't know, what advice would you give to someone that wanted to get on Shark Tank, actually?
Make sure it's the right fit for you. Make sure that it's going to help you accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. At the end of the day, we wrote a very large check to ABC Productions and Mark Burnett.
You wrote a check?
Yeah, because they actually take a percentage of ownership within the company by going on Shark Tank, regardless if your show gets aired or not. If you go out there and they pitched you, they take a percentage of your company.
Holy crap! Did
Yeah.
you know that?
Yeah.
How much? What percentage?
It's probably changed. I think it was maybe 1% back then, which doesn't seem like a lot, especially for kind of a concept stage company. But that's a tremendously large number at the end of the day.
Just to get on.
Just to get on, and not necessarily guaranteed to get aired. They told us that they would never execute the option because it's a vesting option. They're like, we're only going to invest. We're only going to exercise the option if you become the next Starbucks or Google or something like that. But at the end of the day, when we wanted to get the acquisition completed, they're like, we can't acquire you with Mark Burnett and ABC owning a portion of your company. Like, you have to figure out a way to end this deal for us to acquire you. And so we had to buy them out of the company to get acquired. And it was, prior to Mark Burnett and ABC, it was a drop in a bucket to them, but to us, it was a large chunk of change. And so I think Shark Tank can help you achieve your goals. Just make sure it can before jumping in. Don't just assume it's all gravy and this is kind of the ticket to success. Make sure it's the right fit for you.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Just to be on the show.
I mean, if I had to do it again, we wouldn't have done it.
Really?
We would not have done it. It was a great life experience. It's something I can look back on and be fond of. At the end of the day, we wouldn't have done it though.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. With that said, that's the end of my questions. I'm going to open it up for the audience here. You guys want to have? Do you think the mic will take it if they just talk?
I think it'll work.
Yeah.
Just
So talk loud
project.
because we have an open mic. If you want to ask a question, go ahead and come up and talk a little louder so we can catch up on the mic.
I'm trying to ask a generic question, just like on
Okay.
what's like the hardest thing you've done this year, and then maybe more closer to today?
Oh man, the hardest thing I've done this year. Really, I mean, the hardest thing I've done the last couple years is developing the distribution channel for our company. There's so much uncertainty surrounding it. As much as I believe my abilities, I knew there was always a chance we were going to fail too, and so we had to just try so many different things till we found the right formula that worked. We've been growing SkySlope for 2 years now, and I tell my team this all the time. I feel like we just now figured out exactly the formula for success and how to scale the company the way we want to scale it, the rate we want to scale it. And there was so much failure along the way. You've got to embrace that. Failure is part of growing. It means you're doing something so challenging that you should embrace it. It's part of the process. And so I think that's kind of the hardest thing we've had to learn to accept, is just those kind of pitfalls along the way, knowing we were getting closer to the end result and now ultimately getting there. Hardest thing I did today, keep my sales team in line. They're a tough bunch to keep in line. But they're doing good. I've got one back there. That's how come I decided to pick on him a little bit. That answer it?
Yeah.
Great.
I'm just trying to get an idea.
Of course.
And here's a chance for you guys to ask your boss that question.
When's the next raise?
Anybody else like to ask a question?
I got one.
Go ahead, Terry.
First name again, I'm sorry?
DJ.
DJ. All right, and the first company you had was?
NoteHall.
NoteHall. All right, I kind of seen that Shark Tank episode, and then I knew you were coming here, so I said, you know what, I think I have something similar to what you have. I'm in the real estate investing space, and I create a lot of content. So I sell an expensive course, and so what I want to think about doing is what you did, was bring in somebody to take the notes, and then try to sell off the notes as a revenue stream also. But how did that work as far as you had your portion that you collected, then you had the people that were taking notes? Could you give me like kind of a breakdown? Was it a third?
We never really A/B tested it as we should have. At the end of the day, we gave, I think it was 33% to our note takers, and we kept the remaining 60% for processing and obviously paying our bills and stuff like that. And the number just seemed to make sense. It motivated our note takers, and it kept our doors open. I don't think you need to worry about the exact science, the distribution of where the wall's going to go. Just find a mall that makes sense for both ends of the marketplace, and you can always refine and tweak it. You can always put a little bit more this way, a little bit more that way. Just try a bunch of different things and see if you have that fit there first, and then you can tweak it down the line. I don't worry too much about having the perfect model out of the gates.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I know you went into the real estate parts. I said, there's got to be some ties. I think we're on the same wavelength.
Of course. Talk to me afterwards. I'll help you out the best I can.
Thank you, sir.
Of course.
Miles?
So with NoteHall, when I first learned about it, I thought it's got to be controversial from an academic perspective. So I was curious, did you ever get any blowback with that company from universities?
It was funny because our mentors in Philadelphia said, if you're not getting cease and desist, you're not doing something right. You got to push the envelope. And if you're pushing the envelope and you're getting cease and desist, you're doing something right. because that means you're making enough of waves, you're disrupting people, you're making people upset. That means you're making some progress. And so yeah, we got cease and desist, I'd say bi-weekly. It was funny. By the end, we were actually celebrating. We're like, okay, great. Once we get a cease and desist, we know we've made a statement on campus, and we're going to continue to grow. And most of the time, I mean, universities didn't know what to do with us. We weren't violating anything. We had and so at the end of the day, we started embracing the cease and desist.
How would you handle it? What do you got to do?
We'd be as respectful as possible. You know, this is our legal team drafted up a letter for us. We'd send it back to them. Occasionally, we'd go back and forth, and I think we did shut down at maybe 1 or 2 campuses. But ultimately, you know, it's once we'd send back the official legal letter back to the university, they realized that we were legitimate. We weren't just kind of fly-by-night company. And 90% of the time, they'd just go away after that. You know, they didn't know how to make with us. They just figured, they'll go away eventually. We'll stop bothering, kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Laura?
I just have some feedback. I tweeted about the equity thing on Shark Tank, and somebody tweeted me back an article that said they no longer have an equity clause in
Oh, really?
their contracts.
So basically you got screwed.
I got screwed. That makes me feel even better. Thanks, Laura. I'm just kidding.
I'm glad to perk you up there. Laura, I'm sorry, Mary Jane?
Okay, so I love working with seasoned entrepreneurs because they've made enough mistakes that they figure things out really fast after that. What do you find gets easier the second time around? What are some of the things that
You hit it on the head. It's knowing what decisions aren't going to work because you've tried them before. I think that's really what's allowed us to grow at the rate we have. You know, Josh Kaufman, the founder of Half.com, who sold to eBay, he was one of our mentors in Philadelphia, and he says he loves investing. He much rather invest in a terrible idea but a great team than a great idea and a terrible team. Is because of that. They have that mindset. They know what works, what doesn't work. They can avoid failure quickly, but they don't necessarily avoid it. They're still going to find failure, but they fail faster, and they move on to the next idea and the next concept faster. And that's key. Too many kind of inexperienced entrepreneurs just continue kind of banging their heads against the wall when they realize a simple pivot could be absolutely game-changing for them. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things I've learned. We bang our heads against the wall, but then we're quick to move on to the next step and try something new.
So was that with NoteHall or with SkySlope?
We do that every day with both companies.
Give me an example of where you're banging your head and you make a pivot.
So I guess with NoteHall, going back to that, when we first got started off, we just did study guides. So it was just study guides prior to the test. And we weren't seeing a lot of buyers. They weren't showing up to the degree. We weren't getting the success and traction we wanted. And so the first pivot we made is like, all right, instead of just study guides, let's do lecture notes and study guides. And what we found is students love just seeing that reliable content up on a regular basis. They never bought lecture notes. Study guides were 99% of our business, but knowing that content, seeing that content there and growing that library database gave them faith that they could come back prior to a test and know material would be there ready for them. So the first 2 semesters, we didn't hit any of the milestones we were looking for from a growth perspective. Our investors were hounding on us, and we couldn't figure it out. We're like, all right, let's try this. Let's try notes. We did that. Next semester was our game-changing semester. We broke every record we possibly had, and we continued on that formula for success, and it worked out really well for us.
Okay, that's great.
So, just personally or professionally, what old habits have you had and still keep using that are really effective, and what new habits have you formed recently that have been really helping out?
Oh God, old habits. I tell everyone this. This is I think I portray these traits, and I look for this in any new hire. I look for humility and hunger. Those are the 2 things I look for in an individual. You can never be too experienced, too seasoned to be humble. And that's just asking questions, finding people that have been through what you've gone through before, looking for any opportunity to gain that insight, that knowledge, and then the hunger, that desire to be great at what you do. I think that's something I've always had hopefully I can sustain for the rest of my life. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
New habits that you've just garnered that are really effective.
New habits. So I used to be a very hands-on manager. I used to want to have control over every single aspect of the company. I wanted to control it. I wanted to have my input. I wanted to have my say on it. And what I've learned recently is that was easy to do at NoteHall with a company of 5. At SkySlope with a company of 50, you can't do that. You don't have time in the day to do that. So what it's all about in my eyes now, and I've just recently adopted this philosophy, You set a very solid foundation from a training perspective, from a knowledge transfer perspective. You set crystal clear expectations, and then you give individuals autonomy to find their way to the end solution. Let them do it the way they want to do it. And I found, the people that are right fit for the job will find that, and they'll impress you, and they'll make their way there. And the people that aren't necessarily the right fit for the job, they'll kind of get lost in the shuffle, but you don't have time to micromanage those individuals anyways, and then they go separate ways. Of course.
So I'm creating a mobile app where the target market is college students, and I wanted to get, what are your tips you said you penetrated 150 campuses, and I wanted to know, what are your tips to penetrate the college students?
They're a fickle bunch, as I'm sure you've seen. My one suggestion is you've got to add value to them instantly. I mean, if they don't see the value from the very first visit, they're going to be gone. And so one thing we did is we provided a 30% preview or 40% preview of the document before they bought it. And so they knew as soon as it was time sensitive because their test was in 24 hours, they got to check out the content at least a little bit beforehand. So we provided that instant value from the first visit they had there. And that really hooked them to not only buy the first time, but to come back and check for repeat content. So I think with more so with college students than anyone, you have to provide value from the very first visit. It has to be significant value for it to stick and for you actually to have success.
Oh, I see. So did you have salespeople that actually went to these campuses, or?
So just like I was saying, it was the note takers were the kind of the directors of marketing. So so the person would post a study guide, 24 hours before an exam or something like that, send out a message to their fellow classmates saying, we just posted a study guide. Here's a direct link to it. Again, you have to make the process as frictionless as possible too. If there's any kind of, if they don't know where to click, if there's too much in the registration process, they're going to be gone. Right. So make that process as frictionless as possible and provide as much value as you can, as fast as you can, even if it might come somewhat at a loss to the company or a break even to the company, just to show them that kind of proof of concept of your idea to make sure that you have something there.
Okay, thanks.
Of course.
So in that case, with one click, they can see 30 or 40% of the notes that they're looking for?
We optimized the funnel, and that we spent countless hours on that aspect of it. We improved from maybe it was 1% of people that click through actually purchase a note to a 33% just through constant A/B testing, constantly. And a lot of it wasn't even so much statistical analysis. It was just hey, why are we doing this? Let's just get rid of that. They don't need to log in first before they see it. We already know their university, so let's put that up there so they feel like it's more credible. A lot of common sense stuff that we just constantly thought about and we're always really critical of and asked for as much feedback as we could. And that was really revolutionary for us.
Well, Laura, you have a question?
Yeah. So you've had different business partners, and you have two startups, right? Or did I miss one in the middle there?
No, just two.
Okay. So finding a co-founder is probably one of the most difficult things to do. Finding one that you can work with, and I've also heard that if you have a co-founder, you're more likely to get investment capital. So I wondered, with your experience in working with different founders, if you had any advice on finding a co-founder.
That's tough. Know your strengths. Know your strengths and know your weaknesses. You're not going to find someone that embodies all of your weaknesses and you guys are perfect balance. It's not going to happen. I mean, if it does, great. You're going to be successful. You have a much higher chance of being successful. But I know I'm not a rah-rah guy. I'm not a go in there and fire up the troops. I'm an analytical guy, and I like to provide feedback and suggestions I know is really believable and achievable. And then my business partner, he likes to go in there and just get everyone fired up, be loud, be excited, high energy type. And that really works well for us. So I knew that going in, that me and Tyler would be good business partners because I knew what his strengths were, and I knew what my strengths were, and we feed off each other really well. And I think you have to find a good co-founder. I don't think investors will, it's very rare for investors to invest in just a sole individual. It's just the hardships of being an entrepreneur. You need that co-founder to have your back, to be there to lift you up when you're down and vice versa. They know that the trial and tribulations that go with building a company, and so that co-founder is not only critical in just that aspect of kind of feeding off you, but also to lift you back up because of how hard it can be to grow a company.
Any question?
Well, I got one over here. With a product that has technology layers, kind of like both of yours, when do you know it's ready to launch? Do you have a checklist or any beta processes you want to share?
What we did with both products is we were heavily engaged from the day of the concept with our end user. Whether it's 1 or 50 or just 100, whatever it might be, we are heavily engaged with them. So we were building the product basically to spec for them. And so they were ready to use it like, hey, as soon as you get this feature, we're ready to use it. And they started using it from day one. And then as we said, then we tried to sell that product to someone else. And they said, I like it, but once you get this, I'll be ready. And we continue to do that. And so we were, you know, you've heard the phrase, it's kind of been worn out, a minimal viable product, but that's really what we were doing. We said, what's the MVP for you to be willing to use this product and be willing to pay for it? And so we just built that to scope, and then we moved on to the next user, and we moved on to the next user. And eventually we could start getting them in bunches, but it just started. We were really engaged with our end user from the very first day once we came up with the concept.
Digging a little deeper on this, sorry, have you said no to some features? How do you know, is that a...
Early on, no. Early on, we said yes to everything.
We'll build it.
Yeah, I mean, early on, we didn't, as everyone, you don't know if your concept is going to be the right fit for the market or not, so you can't say no. You just, if the end user says they want it, you got to build it. Now that we have 75,000 paying subscribers, it's a little different. We say no a lot now. Not to the big clients though. We've got it's a 80-20 rule where 80% of our revenues come from 20%. If one of those 20% asks for something, we do it. We say how they say jump, we say how high kind of stuff. If it's the other end of the spectrum, we'll try to fit it in, but most likely it's not going to work.
Did you put in features that you kind of regret or took out because maybe it fit one client, but it really was just a bad feature?
Yeah, I'm sure we have. And I black out all those bad memories. Sarah, our product manager over there, could probably talk to that a little bit more. But yeah, I know we have. And that's something, there's probably a better system, but that system that's worked for us so far. And especially early on, I don't think you can go wrong by finding one client that's willing to pay for it, build it to spec, and build everything they need, move on to the next one, and then kind of grow from there.
Fair enough.
I can have time for one more question, if there's any more.
There's a movement for a do-it-yourself, where maybe people don't think they need to become a broker or a real estate agent. They want to sell on their own. So does your product kind of take that into...
I'm sorry, what was that last? What was that first?
Well, I know you're mainly targeting brokers, real estate agents. What if is there a market out there that where people could want to sell their property on their own, and you can guide them through it?
Oh,
people are doing more a do-it-yourself type of thing. They're doing their homes. They're doing things themselves, not depending on other professions.
There is certainly a market for that, and that market's certainly growing. But it's really out of our niche. We want to make brokers as efficient as we possibly can. From a business standpoint, give them the data they need to make educated decisions, make the agent more efficient. And we have still so much more room to grow in that vertical that we haven't yet explored something like that. We're really focused on our niche. We know our end client so well that had to be kind of change our end client. So unless we felt like the market that we're currently in was kind of drying up a little bit, we need to explore the vertical. We're kind of staying in our
That would almost make your current clients mad.
Yeah, they might be, yeah.
You'd almost have to create a new spin-off or something that's...
Exactly.
Okay, with that said, I want to first, thank you.
You always have gifts for me every time we see each other.
Yeah, it always helps. So this is actually was engraved by a local. He's an Air Force veteran, and he's local. But I want you to, thank you for coming and speaking with us, helping us, educate us and inspire us. So thank you very much.
Of course, thank you, awesome.